Next up, we have Skip Lisle. Skip has devoted his life to improving human habitat, protecting the transportation network, eliminating wasteful and inefficient kill defense strategies, restoring rich native ecosystems, and accruing an array of vast wetland water values. In other words, he has developed high-quality flow devices like the Beaver Deceiver and Castor that replace the need to kill our most valuable wildlife species and common sense itself. So please join me in welcoming Skip Lisle to the stage.
Thanks in particular to Scott and Mike, for all the work you do, but particularly the work involved in getting this great group of people together. And thank you all for coming. Some of you paddled from Europe, and some of you dispersed overland from the West Coast. So it was a pretty impressive effort. And it's good that you're here. I think this is the right place to be at the right time. We're looking at a tremendous opportunity, and it's very, very exciting. I hope all of you can read my title slide. I'm going to reread the bottom part, focusing on a few frustrators of forward progress. I was thinking, because this is about wetlands, we could say forward frogress as well. So this is speaking of forward, this is the forwarder, I think. Before I do that, I just want to say that a couple other phrases I want to use as frame of reference for just the big picture, and a lot of that has to do with the landscape changes over time, and where beavers are in the landscape, the nature of the conflict, etc. And also another one, finances. And so I'll start with that. Scott did a great job talking about the value that the federal government is willing to assign to an acre of wetland. But that's an acre of man-made wetland, right? A beaver-created wetland is far better, far better, far more natural, and probably worth a lot more. And I don't know, I tend to think those figures, as big as they sound, are an underestimate, because a beaver. In Maine, they call them flowages, so I use that term a lot. A beaver flowage, it may be there creating all this value for society for decades and hundreds of years, and so through time, I think it's a lot more value. Now, this is a wonderful children's book by Dorothy Wood. It doesn't even have a date on it, but it's pretty old, and my parents apparently were indoctrinating me with beaver stuff at a very early age. But Dorothy says it all here. This is a pretty smart crowd, so you probably have figured out that in the absence of beavers, you don't get any beaver dams created. But also, if they have been created and you remove the beavers, they disappear completely. They have a large woody component, which is in a warm, moist environment and does not hold up very well over time. And of course, this happened in a huge way. And again, we're smart enough to know that we don't need the fur trade to reinforce this fact. But because of the fur trade and extirpation of beavers for hundreds of years, who knows, hundreds of thousands of beaver flowages, maybe millions, completely disappeared for a long period of time. In the forested regions of the continent, they all became forested. Just briefly, this is a watershed I studied when I was in graduate school. I called it the Monroe Watershed in Monroe, Maine. It's in the southern part of Maine, south central Maine. It is very rural, very rural. The mountains are not very big, small hills, but nevertheless, you can see it's basically a human-dominated landscape. I measured the extent of beaver damming habitat. Beaver damming habitat is low gradient areas and small streams. And it was 1.5% of the landscape. And it's probably come up a little bit, maybe 1.75% now, but a tiny fraction of the landscape in a world dominated by humans. Now take a look at this. This is the biggest flowage right there, see? I'm not nervous because I'm public speaking. See that big thing? Okay, that's the biggest flowage here. And that's, I looked at aerial photographs. I really want to lean into that speaker. Aerial photographs from 1939. It was before beavers had recovered and returned from the fur trade. And every flowage, same sites, same exact sites as that the beavers had occupied for 10,000 years. And they're invisible. They're all forested. They were just gone. And so then the beavers arrived and started reflooding these sites and creating a lot of beauty in the standing dead timber. So what does that mean? That means, we have a lot of beavers are being killed in this continent because the value of timber they're destroying. There's no net loss. The fur trade was a historical anomaly, one-time event. Trees never grew in these places. They're not meant to grow in these places. They can't grow in these places. And so it's not a real loss. And so we can't be killing beavers because they're returning to their ancient habitats and creating enormous wealth in the form of marshes. It's also, I'm going to talk about fish a little bit. It's also no net warming of the water. None. It's a gradual change back to the ancient condition of the landscape. That's a good thing. Natural, quote unquote, is a good thing. That's the environment that all native species evolved in. And some more cool scenes of standing dead timber. I love it. It's a fleeting time period we live in, so get out there and enjoy standing dead timber and beaver flowages. It's wonderful for bird perches and a lot of other wildlife value too. And it's really fun too because it tells this story of the arrival of Europeans on the continent, but also the return of beavers. And you can judge when beavers came back to this particular ancient habitat, and by the condition of the dead timber. And so if you see a lot of stumps like this, it means the beavers might have arrived, say in 1940, 1950, and so there's been more time for all the trees to fall over. But this is what an ancient or a normal beaver flowage is supposed to look like. We don't have trees that grow in the water. They're rich marshes, if you will. And just a scene from southern Vermont where the mountains are slightly larger than south central Maine, and that's a big beaver flowage in the bottom, but you're never going to ever see flowages anywhere else because they can't establish homes on the slopes. It has to be pretty low gradient. And also, either on the ground or with Google Earth, you can tell whether a beaver flowage is occupied. If it's yellow, that means the beavers have left, the dam is decayed, and the water's gone. And if it's dark and black, then they're there. They have been there recently. Now, this is kind of an oblique picture. I don't know if it's going to work for you, but from Google Earth. And this is my territory in southern Vermont. My house is, I got to stay by the mic. My house is right there. See that those little spots there are surrounded by beaver ponds. But these are trout streams where I grew up fishing as a kid, and they're very small. Like, see that valley? There's one, there's another one there. Very small, you can't really see them, right? If they were bigger, you'd see them. The forest covers them. And if you were to catch a 7 or 8 inch trout in one of these streams, that would be a whale. So that gives you a sense of it. Okay, and then it goes down to this valley, the agricultural stuff at the bottom, and then flows 16 miles to the Connecticut River. So you'll never have a beaver flowage along any of that. It's too big, the stream's too big, and or there's too much gradient. And so That's at the very top of the watershed. Those are beaver ponds where the beavers have been killed because there's no water there. I know that landowner doesn't tolerate them. And this other stream, the Howell Brook here, that's the first beaver pond right there. And so if beaver dams were barriers to trout, well, they aren't too many barriers. But they're not anyways. In fact, the beaver ponds are the best trout habitats. My first experience of beavers as a keystone species was when I was fishing down one of those brooks as a kid, not catching anything, and then I got off to the side into a beaver pond, and there's just tons of trout, and they were much bigger. And so, and another thing to think about with beaver dams is it's conceivable that they're a barrier to fish at a given moment in time. But these are very dynamic things, and so over the years and decades, they come and go, and they break, and they breach, and they overflow, and so it's not a genetic barrier to fish movement over time. And again, when it is big and well maintained, it's full of insect life and food and cover and just fantastic native habitat. Just another quick landscape view. You see the small black spots, occupied, the small white one down here, unoccupied. This is rural Vermont, so man-made reservoir, enormous human influence, ski area, development, enormous. So if anybody's warming the water, it's another species. And this Sandy Wysick is here with us today. She was my boss when I worked here for the Blue Hill Heritage Trust in, again, South Central Maine. And there's not even very many houses there, but look at the human influence in the landscape. Just massive, massive. And so, look at the rarity of wetlands. I mean, wetlands were always rare. And we've destroyed maybe 80% of them, so their extreme rarity makes them all the more valuable. And so there we have a flow device there now, and there. So little tiny things where we can now keep beavers alive and grow wetlands on maybe 1/10 of 1% of this particular landscape. But this is Vermont, New Hampshire, everywhere, every rural area. This is what's happening. Ancient beaver habitat, and we've seen some great pictures from other regions earlier today that we're just mowing, and the beavers can never live here. Of course, another thing we have to do is they can never be here without a flow device right there. But these opportunities, is what I'm saying, are everywhere, everywhere. Another place, you see this little tiny patch of beaver habitat. Everybody's all alarmed because those used to be hay fields, as if that was an ancient natural condition of that little tiny stream. And look at rural area. Look at the dominance. I got a question for you. Why do you think they call Vermont the Green Mountain State? Well, because it's mountainous. So we have lots of fields that are on hillsides where we can feed cattle. We don't have to have them in the beaver flowages. And there's a guy mowing the ancient beaver habitat, and that's that general area from above. That's all mowed. Ancient beaver habitat that they mow, every square foot of it. So I guess we don't have laws to protect these areas in Vermont either. I don't know why, but we're missing a tremendous opportunity. And so that's how a sterilized beaver habitat looks like. I just wanted to say I can speak authoritatively about fish because I studied them at great length when I was a child. And so this is a real barrier. This is a real barrier. This is a Ball Mountain Dam in Jamaica, Vermont. Vermont, by the way, for you people from other areas, is a insignificant little state about 8 hours north of here. And so that doesn't have a fishway, nothing. Now, if a beaver comes to that, he's probably going to die of dehydration if he attempts to climb the dam, And maybe an otter could get over it, but nothing else. So, and then, that's going to warm things up a little bit. And for the amount of money that represents, we could beaver-proof the entire northeastern United States. So just an example. There's a lot of money out there if we want to direct it towards this stuff. And so, yeah, that's a dam that's not going to last as long as the Ball Mountain Dam. Then, so, fish are bad or beavers are bad for fish. It's one of the impediments the pushback things we get. We get a lot of them. Another one in Maine that I heard recently is, they have to shut down the clam flats every summer. So, it could be the beavers are polluting the clam flats. So it's always something. We have a massive flood in Vermont. The beaver dam, wipes out the whole town. Hurricane Irene. The beaver dam's broke. And so this is in Alaska in the Seward Peninsula, where I was last summer, and I saw all these wonderful little beaver flowages, just cutest little things. And there's plenty of willow around, so it's just, to me, nothing. It looks just like a beaver habitat. They should be there. And so, but some people are now saying that the beavers are some sort of an exotic invasive here, and they're causing climate change by breaking up the tundra and releasing carbon. I don't think so. And if you want to study that, all you have to do is go back to the records or aerial photographs. If there was willow in these spots 50 years ago, or 100 years ago, then that's beaver habitat. There may not have been beavers because they've been getting trapped like crazy and killed, so we're just barely making a late recovery. That's my take on it, guys. Pretty cute, though. Pretty cute. It's amazing the poor habitats that beavers can live in. And then, if in fact a beaver dam is an impediment to fish, and some anadromous fish at certain times, maybe so. We're trying to restore stocks of alewives, for example, that we've destroyed. The best way to do that, the most long-lasting, permanent way to do it, is with a flow device in a beaver dam, or in which you can put ladders on, and a lot of relatively inexpensive, non-lethal ways to solve that problem without wiping out your native keystone species or endlessly breaching dams. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Janis Joplin, but she said, freedom's just another word for nothing left to lose. You don't want to hear me sing any more than that. And so this is my quick thoughts on regulatory questions. My feeling is you don't want to do anything to impede the non-lethal defense of our infrastructure. It's mostly roads. They're mostly public roads. So the government has a gigantic role to play in this. And so, in some places, they regulate the flow device. They don't regulate the killing of beavers. So it's being encouraged, combined with 6-month unlimited harvest trapping seasons. The killing of beavers is being encouraged, where if you try to get a flow device in, you may have to wait weeks, and it may double the cost. Just unnecessary regulatory burdens that push everything in the wrong direction. And just create an enormous bureaucracy that's, just costs a lot of people a lot of time that they don't have, and a lot of money for the taxpayer. So please don't regulate flow devices. Encourage the use of good stuff with a little bit of freedom, a little bit of free market freedom. And as long as I'm on that subject, it's very difficult to build an effective flow device. I've specialized in it for a long time, and I still am struggling. So I think the only way we're going to do it is with contractors who specialize in that. You can't dub around with it. You got to be really good. And so we have to have this. And the government, at least with our entire transportation system, they control that. And so we have to work together. Again, tremendous opportunity. A few words about flow devices. Grates are just, all they are is saying, okay, this will just give us a little time until we can kill the beavers. That's nothing. You have to effectively protect a site in a long-term manner, you have to be able to sneak water away from beavers. And and then even if there's not beavers there, you've immediately reduced your culvert capacity by 50 to 90%. When you have a big flood, you're going to lose the road. So grates, any kind of grate, is just a waste. This is over $3,000. It's aluminum, and I'm sorry, it does nothing. Absolutely nothing. Just a waste of taxpayer money. And then, this is another category of bad flow devices. One thing that makes this bad is that it's a major highway, and it's 4-inch mesh, and it's tight to the culvert. So every beaver and every snapping turtle and a lot of other creatures are going to be forced into traffic if they want to use this stream. And then you'll see that the filter is very, very small. And just, that's not ever going to work. The second the beavers arrive and start focusing their efforts there, this thing fails. And so you have to build things bigger and better to have any chance, or you're just going to be causing a lot of road damage and endless cycles of cleaning and killing beavers. And the problem with that is that then society, as they really have, thousands and thousands of flow devices have failed. I hasten to even call them flow devices. I don't think they deserve that's kind of implies that you're sneaking water away from something, and they don't do it. But thousands have failed, and so then entire agencies and states say, well, these things never work. We just have to double down on killing. And all the wonderful momentum that we're trying to create here is lost. And so we got to do it well. That's just an example of very, very fine wire that dissolves. There's big gaps in the bottom of the flow device. It just dissolves because of the acidic water. And there's a I'm using my trapezoidal idea, but there's nothing magical about a trapezoid. It has to be big to have a chance and be well built. Now here's my house. So this is I gotta stay over here. I want to get closer. So the original Beaver Deceiver is right there, right? See that little square of vegetation. So all that, there wasn't a quarter acre of wetlands there when my parents bought this property. It's all developed because of that one Beaver Deceiver. And it's just teems with life. Tens of millions of life forms have been created because of that one Beaver Deceiver over now more than 50 years. So that's the opportunity we have everywhere at almost no cost to create enormous wealth. I don't have much time. You guys probably would just soon not have lunch, so I'll just keep talking. But I got a few more slides here. This is the Penobscot Nation. I just want to give them credit because nothing I've done would have happened without them. I worked for them for 6 years before I went out on my own. That's what we later called, initially we just called it a round fence. That's the cylindrical filter, water in, beavers out. And we later called the whole thing a Castor master. So thank you Penobscots. And so this is a modern site, and a pretty good receiver fence, receives the pipe system. There it is with, see, great big, 16 feet by 5 feet, great big filter, with just, pretty well designed. Thank you very much. So there it is after the beavers completely buried it. 5 feet by 16 feet, small watershed, small flow, great setup, completely buried it. And it's just a word of warning. So what I did is I created a diversion dam, or I call it a starter dam, just in front of it. That's what I was trying to do with that 16-foot filter. I was trying to get the beavers to dam up there. I'm always looking for ways to create wetlands. So now their focus is, we have a wonderful wetland up there, and their focus is off the Beaver Deceiver, thank God. Just a few more pictures, but this is the produce. This is the produce of flow devices. This is the Penobscot Nation. This is 80 acres times what? What are we going to say? Maybe $1 million an acre? I mean, it's been there for 25 years. 80 acres. I mean, it's just teems with life. And this is in Alaska. I told you I was there. I just want to give you some more proof, right? But one thing that was odd about it, the Alaskan beavers really looked weird. I couldn't figure it out. Okay, a series of photographs here. I'm trying to hurry. I don't want to get in trouble. The idea is you do this, you don't have to kill beavers. The only other effective way to protect a culvert is to kill all the beavers. All of them for all time. Only effective way. So I just want you to look at the wetlands associated with every one of these sites. And this, oh God, look at this. I love this picture. Talk about a string of pearls, or stars, landscape stars. There's a flow device right there. This is Penobscot land. Without that, we would have had to kill the beavers, and that whole amazing string of pearls would not have developed. That's Maine. Again, Penobscot Nation, same thing. Culvert at the bottom, another site there, massive wetland there, nice wetland there. Thank you, Carol Richards and family in Maine. And this is only 50 acres, little one, 50 acres protected for 25 years now to Penobscot Nation. Another upstream dam. This is what I call, a starter dam. If you make it impervious enough, you get a spillover stimuli at the top, and then you bait it. The beavers were upstream a ways. You bait it with aspen, and in very, very short order, you get a huge, beautiful wetland. This is just a beginning. It's just going to get a lot bigger. Another example, and you get the point, right? You get the point. Roadside wetland, used for a lot of people in this neighborhood to enjoy, and as a fire pond. There's so many values. In a fire break, right? I mean, it's just, the values are just, they don't stop. And this is that site where I worked for Sandy in Maine, and good things are going to happen there. That's the other site there for the Blue Hill Trust, and another upstream beaver dam, and there's a new dam up just above the flow device there. 1 beaver, 1 month, okay. I did this at the last Beaver Con, so sorry, but I have to repeat it, okay. This is probably a site where the beavers dammed and flooded early on, maybe let's say 1940. You see, there's no standing dead timber. This would have been all forested, and but that beaver lodge you see is a brand new one. There weren't even any beaver lodges here, either old beaver lodges. So that tells me every time beavers arrived there, over the last 50 years, they were killed. They were killed, and so we finally got it protected, and then the birds were just desperate for perches, and so we had tree swallows on that lodge, and red-winged blackbirds, and robins, and a kingbird, and the next spring a Canada goose was nesting on it. 1 beaver, 1 month. Any value there? The beaver left. He wasn't killed. The beaver bolted, but I mean, that's just an example. Miracles happen when you keep live beavers in places. And that's the end. I'm sorry if I went over, but if I can help anybody, that's me, and I'd be glad to give workshops on flow devices, and let's make this thing happen, guys. Let me finish on a crescendo. Fight fiercely, forever. Find friends. See, that's the F word theme. So you're never going to get a greater opportunity than we have right now. So it's very exciting. So let's make it happen. Thank you.